Hey, what's up DIYers? Mike Boers with the Mike Boers channel. Thank you for watching. In today's video, we will be referencing, which I'm honored to be referencing, my dad's 1987 Gravely riding mower. It is the professional 18G with the Magnum 18 Kohler engine. And in today's video, we're going to talk about some common causes of why your mower's not starting. Let's get started. DIYers, here we are on property at my parents' house, and in front of us is my dad's 1987 Gravely mower. Again, it is the professional 18G with the Magnum 18 Kohler engine. And as we talked about in the intro, we are going to run through some common causes that lead to your engine not starting. And in our case, with this actual mower, the engine is in the rear, and up top inside that compartment is the battery, the fuel tank, the electrical wiring, the hydraulic reservoir and hoses and lines, the starter relay, the ignition switch, and a few additional items. And DIYers, that is where we are going to start. Let's go inside that front top compartment. We have these little rubber grips that secure the cover in place, and we've got one on each side. I've already disconnected the opposite side. Carefully pull up on the cover. And as you can see, the fuel tank is in the center, and on top you can see the fuel cap and gauge, and to the right of that, the main battery. Coming up to a top view inside the compartment, and DIYers, the way we are going to cover these common steps that again lead to your engine not starting is we are going to start at the very front of the tractor and move our way back all the way to the engine. So with that said, item number one, we'll talk about the battery. How old is your battery? Let's come on this side, because I want to show you this date right here, 8/24. That is August 2024. And DIYers, it is literally August 2024. In fact, August 17th, 2024. We just replaced this battery. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase a replacement battery, as well as the step-by-step guidance on how to replace your battery. So again, check the date. And if you have not replaced the battery in more than 5 years, it's very likely that the battery is ready to be replaced. In addition, check the overall condition of the connections, both positive terminal and negative. And there is some corrosion on the positive, however, not bad, but it's good to clean any and all rust and corrosion off the leads and connection points and terminals. Double check electrical wiring. And if all looks good, let's test the battery voltage to ensure that it is fully charged. DIYers, at this point I've got the camera positioned and I've got my Craftsman voltmeter. DIYers, this is an incredible voltmeter and a must-have for your toolbox. And down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase this exact Craftsman voltmeter. Again, it is awesome and comes in handy many times throughout the years of projects. However, again, we are going to test the overall voltage of our currently installed battery. And as you can see with the negative lead and terminal, it is exposed. However, the positive, we are going to carefully shift this boot up and slide it back, followed by grabbing the positive and negative test needles or leads. First, positive. Second, negative. And as you can see, 13.15 volts. I will remove those, ensure that the voltmeter returns to 0. And we'll do that one more time. Positive first, negative second, 13.15. DIYers, that is a fully charged battery. And we are confident that item number one, again, your battery, is not the cause of your engine not starting. I'm going to resecure this boot and double check the connections. And if all looks good, we will shift to the left to our fuel tank. I will remove the voltmeter. And again, directing our attention to the fuel tank, DIYers, it is common sense. We probably don't have to cover this. However, it does happen. Ask us how we know. We have run out of fuel ourselves and couldn't figure out why the engine wasn't starting, only to find out we were out of gas. And I'm going to lift up and remove the fuel gauge. As you see right here, check inside the tank to ensure, again, DIYers, that you have fuel. And down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase a brand new fuel cap and gauge. Because, as you see, I'll open that back up and remove it. Look at the slit in the actual cap or top portion of the gauge. And I'm going to press on the fuel tank and it actually whistles. Hear that? I'll come to this side. DORs, believe it or not, that can degrade the overall engine performance and efficiency of the engine running because the fuel system is not able to properly and fully pressurize with that leak. So again, item number 1, battery. Item number 2, fuel. Let's continue to the left into the electrical wiring portion of the compartment where the starter relay, ignition switch, hydraulic pump, hydraulic hoses, and more are located. Coming inside, and we will start with what says polarity sensitive. That is our Hobbs meter, as you see on the opposite end, and 2,103 hours on this 1987 mower. And to the left of that, you see a red positive cable that feeds into our starter relay solenoid. And DIYers, in the event that you have never replaced your solenoid, chances are that might be the cause. And this will be item number 3 in the common causes. Again, a faulty starter relay or solenoid. And down below in the comments and description will be a link on how to properly and safely replace that. DIYers, you are dealing or working with the ignition system. And I'm going to remove this. Set that aside. There's a right way to replace this, and there is a wrong way to replace this. Don't do it the wrong way. So again, item number 3, a faulty starter relay. And moving to the left, there is our newly installed ignition switch. And we purchased a replacement OEM because the original one lasted several decades, and we want the new one to last an additional several decades. And coming to this side that the key just came out of, this is item number 4. In the event that you have a faulty ignition switch, that will need to be replaced because it will not allow the engine to start. In other words, you put the key in, turn the key to the ignition, and try to start the engine. It sends the electrical power upstream to the starter relay solenoid, which in return feeds that electrical power down below to that larger red cable and all the way back to your starter located on the engine. Coming back in here, same thing. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase a brand new ignition switch, as well as how to properly and safely replace it. And while we're here, just take a look at the overall condition of the leads. You can actually pull the connection off. I'll do that right now. Check the overall condition of the leads. Come in here, I'll tuck that down just slightly. Give you a better view of the electrical leads on the back portion of the ignition switch. And in our case, we've got 5 leads. And if those are burnt, damaged, corroded, bent, or anything out of the ordinary, again, the ignition switch must be replaced because it might be the reason why your engine is not starting. I'll push this back on and secure it. And again, item number 4, the ignition switch. And coming out here, let's direct our attention to our actual forward, reverse, and idle transmission bar. As you can see right here, I can move it very freely. And with ours, you might have the foot pedal for the forward and reverse. However, if we push it, we can actually push it directly into the forward detent and lock it in place so the transmission is in the constant forward motion. And we just hold onto the wheel and mow the lawn. However, bringing it out of the forward detent, back to idle, and then back to reverse, right there. These are touchy, and if not adjusted and tightened over the years or properly greased, which my dad did a really good job over the years keeping that greased. Here's the fitting right there. A little dirty around, but better to be dirty with grease than completely dry. Again, these are very touchy. And we will go under here and show you why I'm saying that here shortly. Right here. We will reference that once we raise the back panel. However, let's come up here. Let's talk about our throttle. And in our case, just ensure that it is all the way down to the slow or turtle and the choke is pushed all the way in. It's possible that your choke is out and you are flooding the engine. If that's the case and you have tried starting the engine with the choke all the way out, push the choke back in. Allow the engine to sit maybe 30 minutes. Come back and try to start the engine with the choke pushed in as shown here with just a little bit of added throttle as shown there. So item number 5, your throttle and choke as shown there. Moving down, item number 6, let's check the configuration of the PTO, high and low range selector, and gear selector. We'll start with the right side gear. We've got first on the left, second, third, fourth. If it's out of alignment or stuck in between gears as shown here, DORs, it's not going to start. I'll put that back in second. Move over to our range selector. Same thing, if it's stuck in the middle or out of configuration, your engine will not start. Either have it fully high or fully low, as shown there. And moving over to the right, I'm actually going to shift this back up to high. The PTO. DIYers, this is an extremely common cause of why your engine is not starting. And that is because your PTO knob, lever, or shaft or configuration is not properly set or aligned. In other words, you will never be able to start your engine with the PTO engaged to the on configuration. So ensure that you pull this back and turn it all the way off, as shown there. And in our case, everything is properly aligned and configured. And coming back to this bar in neutral, let's go ahead and raise the back panel. Engine compartment panel or cover has been raised, and there is an inside view of all of the linkages, shafts, and more, all the way back to our oil and dipstick, air filter case, and grass screen. We'll get to that here shortly. However, as promised, let's direct our attention to this little sensor and electrical wire connection, and that has to do with, again, our transmission forward, neutral, and reverse bar. And as I move it, I'll set the camera back, give you a better view. Taking a step back, at this point I've got the camera position again on the left lower portion that I'm pointing at right now. That is a sensor. It's very important in the starting process of your mower, and it is a safety feature. And again, to the right, our transmission bar that cycles through forward, reverse, and neutral. And I'm going to move that, and you will see this mechanism move. And on the very inner portion on the top of this part, there is a lead, as well as the bottom portion right here. And DIYers is extremely important in our case. In order for the engine to start, those two leads must be perfectly connected. Coming up top, all the way to forward, as you can see, the two parts are completely separated. I will now move that bar back to neutral. And it's in neutral. However, you can see that the connections aren't really connected. They may be touching slightly. However, if I go all the way back to reverse, it goes right through and all the way to the back and completely disconnects from that inner lead. Back to neutral, right there. I now have the bar properly positioned where these two leads are perfectly in line and connected. In addition, that electrical wiring and sensor sends the signal upstream inside your electrical compartment there where your starter, relay, and ignition switch and more are, and it gives the green light to the starter, relay, and ignition that these two leads are properly aligned and secured to each other, which completes the electrical circuit for proper engine starting. And while we are here, take a look at the overall condition, DIYers. In the event that these two leads are aggressively corroded or rusted, go ahead and carefully position the bar in a way where you separate the two and you can gain access to the two in a friendly manner to clean them, or you may even want to replace them. However, let's take a look at the electrical connection. Carefully shift this off. Again, check the overall condition of the electrical connection. I'm going to come into a close-up view. As you see right there, if those two leads are corroded, rusted, or damaged, the electrical connection is not going to be able to send the proper signal, again, upstream to the starter solenoid and ignition to give it the green light to start. Taking a step back, I'm going to re-secure carefully that connection point, and feeding out of it and all the way back, just double check the electrical wiring. Make sure none of the wiring is bent, melted, frayed, rusted, corroded, or loose. That will trigger your engine not to start. Now let's continue back toward the engine. DIYers, we have made our way back to the engine and rear portion of the tractor, and we'll start with the top, and that is our air filter casing or housing, and inside here is your air filter. And go ahead and remove both of your wing nuts and check the overall condition of your air filter, and DIYers, say if it's dirty or damaged and just falling apart, go ahead and replace it. In addition, when you take the two wing nuts off, you can pull up on the air filter and gain access to the air intake that feeds into your carburetor. And if that is clogged, whether clogged with grass or maybe a mouse nest or bird's nest, you will definitely want to clean that out. And while we're here, I'm going to show you that. I will remove the wing nuts. Here's our air filter, and it's not in the best condition. And we just recently adjusted the carburetor because it was running rich and the engine was running hot because of that. And down below in the comments and description will be a link on how to properly adjust your carburetor. DIYers, that's important. And while we're here, I'm going to show you a close-up view of the intake. coming up and in. And again, if that is clogged with either a bunch of grass or nest from an animal, go ahead and carefully clean it out. You don't want any of that going further into your carburetor and engine. And this is your air intake to the air filter housing itself. And the way that gets air is down below. When the engine is running, you have your grass screen, which we are going to replace, and we have our flywheel fan blade that needs to be replaced. And as it spins with the engine running, it sucks air in and air cools the entire engine, and it also pushes air up through here and provides air to the compartment, where it is then filtered and sent down into the intake and into the carburetor to mix with the fuel for proper fuel air ratio. To different camera angle, I've re-secured the cap to the air filter housing or casing and just ensure that the rubber seal is properly seated, and we will continue on to the next item or common cause. And we are going to direct our attention to these three items here. As you can see, the far right one feeds to the spark plug. This is your spark plug boot. And then in the center, we have an electrical wiring that feeds into a connection here and then feeds all the way upstream to the wire connection that feeds into the ignition switch. And DIYers, in our case, this is a kill switch. And in the event that your engine is running and you turn the key to the off position and pull the key out, however, the engine still runs, it is very likely that your kill switch back here is damaged or separated inside here or downstream where your ignition coil is. And the ignition coil is inside this panel here, and each of your spark plug boots feed into that ignition coil. And now to the left one, that feeds inside here underneath the exhaust manifold to the opposite side where we have our second or additional spark plug and boot. And again, same thing, it feeds all the way inside this engine cowling or panel and secures to the ignition coil that is secured to your flywheel. And with that said, in the event that you have not replaced your spark plugs or spark plug boots in the last 5 years, DIYers, it might be a good time to replace them. And down below in the comments and description, we will also have a video link on how to properly and safely do that, as well as where to buy replacement parts, which include your spark plugs, your boots, and the additional ignition coil inside that panel connected to the flywheel and engine that the opposite end of the plug wires connect to. In addition to that, we will have a link on how to replace your ignition coil, as well as the fan blade for your flywheel and the grass screen that secures to the fan blade, as well as properly and safely replacing your voltage regulator right here, and links on where to buy all of these replacement parts. Making our way to the back, and as you can see, this is again the Magnum Kohler 18. DIYers, this grass screen is begging for replacement. What happened was one of the portions of the fan blade broke loose and it just started eating this up, and it continued to eat up the fan to a point, believe it or not, that parts of this fan blade, it's hard plastic, came down here and got stuck on the bottom portion of the cowling or panel where the starter is right there, and inside this section right here is where your Bendix shifts out of your starter and engages with the flywheel and spins the engine to start it. Well, once the engine starts, the Bendix is supposed to retract back inside the starter and never make contact with the spinning flywheel the entire time the engine is running. Well, again, what happened was the fan blades broke free and they actually got lodged inside the section here, and when the engine started, it actually stuck in between the flywheel and Bendix, and the Bendix never retracted, and we had to basically remove this back panel, gain access to that area, and carefully remove those fan blades that again broke off from the flywheel fan blade assembly up top and got stuck and lodged in place, basically crippling the operation of the starter. Not good. Now to the starter, in the rear portion you have a red positive cable and connection that secures and feeds power to the starter. Check the overall condition of that, and the starter wire comes up here, as you can see right there, feeds all the way upstream where it connects to our starter relay. Making our way more port side or left rear, and let's go inside here. We have a fuel filter with an arrow and fuel hoses. And DIYers, in the event that your fuel filter has not been replaced in many years, it's time to replace it. Following the fuel hose and coming right inside here, you really can't make it out. However, that is the original OEM from 35 plus years ago fuel pump. Alright DIYers, hey, a quick break in the action. And again, it's really hard to make out the part. You can barely see a little bit of red underneath all of that gunk. But again, this is the original OEM. However, I do want to hit the computer real quick and show you a photo of our exact replacement fuel pump for my dad's 1987 Kohler Magnum 18 engine. Here we are on the computer, and also DIYers down below in the comments and description will be a link on where to purchase this fuel pump. And that might be your cause if you've checked everything else. You might actually have a faulty or weak fuel pump. And a few images right here. And basically what we were just looking at, that's all gunked up and very difficult to see, is this top portion right here. And coming to this photo, that's a better view of it. Additional info. And a brand new hose that feeds off the fuel pump and into the carburetor, as well as additional adapters, lock ring, seal and gasket, and check it out, a brand new fuel pump. So this is a pretty cool kit to purchase. However, let's head back to the tractor, where we will shift to the left of the fuel pump and down in where the carburetor is. And again, fuel hose goes in one side and a fuel hose comes out the other and goes into our carburetor. And you can see the carburetor bowl right down there. And we're also going to replace that. Down below in the comments and description will be a link on how to replace that. In addition, you see a brass flathead screw. That is our fuel idle screw. There are additional screws for adjustments up top, and we'll also have a link down below on how to properly and safely readjust your carburetor, because you might not actually have to replace it. At this point, the engine is fully shut down, and DIYers, we hope this helps. And also down below, as we've mentioned, there are going to be several video links that you will hopefully find helpful. And in addition to that, links on where to purchase replacement parts. Below the video, you will see that thumbs up icon. Click on that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Definitely ring your YouTube bell. That would be very helpful to us. We would really appreciate it. Thanks again for watching. And one more thing, if your parking brake is out of adjustment and not actually working as it should, we will have a link down below as well for that. Thanks again.